everyone. Welcome to this evening's session. It is a pleasure and honor for me to be meeting with you, discussing on this topic, is your autopilot ruining your life and relationship? So what I'll do is, first of all, I'll just share my screen. How do I do that? Okay, yeah. Share screen over here. There we are. Okay, so this is where we are at for today. Again, welcome to this session. I hope that the topic is interesting enough for you, meaning to say that you have signed up for the session this evening. And we have these sessions every week. Not it's just that we keep alternating the themes for the session. The first Thursday of the month, the theme is on neurosemantics. The second Thursday of the month, which is supposed to be today, I shifted it to Wednesday because tomorrow I'm going for my second jab. So that's why I shifted it to Wednesday for this week. So the second Thursday, we move into relationships. So that's what this topic is dealing with. The third Thursday, we change gears into meta coaching. And the fourth Thursday of the month, we go into parenting. So those are the four themes that I cover every month. And I hope that you will gain value from what we are going to be discussing this evening. Now, for this evening, just to, and especially for those who are meeting me here for the first time, I'm Marzuki, and my focus is in helping people to develop the best that they can in their lives from the perspective of neurosemantics and meta coaching. Now, in the context of relationship, to have meaningful, mutually enhancing relationships, you need to behave in ways that enhances the relationship. I'm sure you know this. When it comes to relationships, when your behaviors are acceptable to people, it enhances that particular relationship. When your behaviors are not acceptable, the relationship diminishes. So we are responsible towards others of what we say and do, because if what we say and do is acceptable to the other person, then we have greater chance of developing that relationship. If it is contrary, then it will bring that relationship down. Now, behaviors that are socially acceptable, problematic, and challenging will not endear us to others. Behaviors such as being aggressive towards others, behaviors of needing continuous attention, behaviors that are argumentative and inflammatory. So these sort of behaviors to most people are unacceptable. And probably you have met those types of people behaving in those ways. So the question that I posed to people is that, how do you feel when you meet such people? Do you like being around them? Do you want to avoid them? And now flipping it to the other side is looking at my behavior. Is my behavior aggressive towards others? Is my behavior the behavior of needing continuous attention? Is my behavior argumentative and inflammatory? So if my behaviors are those behaviors, then it doesn't take a genius to know that my behaviors are just pushing people away, and it could ruin that relationship. So how do we overcome that? Because my take on how people look at things, how people how people want relationships to thrive is that many people don't do those things deliberately. There are some people, they have the right intentions, the right meanings about relationships that they want to create. It's just that they may not be aware that they are behaving in ways that are pushing people off. So the thing is this: when you are behaving in ways that are not endearing yourself to others, are you looking at ways to explore the situation so that you may change in order to enhance the relationship? Or are you just justifying those behaviors and expect people to accept you as you are? So those are the I would say the facets when we look at relationships, because in my experience, there are people whom when we inform them that their behaviors are not suitable, are not comfortable to me, there are people who will say, I'm sorry that I did that. I didn't know that it caused you to do that. And yet there are others who, when they are given that feedback that their behaviors are not, I will use the word, are not acceptable to others, they go into that defensive mode. Defensive mode. So this is where we are looking at how is it that in our relationships, how are we looking at our behaviors? How are we noticing our behaviors? Are there behaviors that we engage in that we are not aware we are pushing others, even though we have every intention of behaving in ways that will be useful, acceptable to others? Are we causing people to just be pushed away from that relationship, and we are not aware of that? So that's the whole context of this discussion for this evening. That's why I call it, is your autopilot ruining your life and relationships? Because my conviction is that there may be, yes, of course, there are people who don't bother about others. They are deliberately pushing people off. However, I will use the word, my assumption is that for most people, they are unaware that their behaviors are pushing people away. So that's the context of our discussion for this evening. Yeah? So before I continue on, I'd just like to welcome those who have recently joined us. I didn't notice, I did not manage to greet you earlier. So Hashim, thank you for joining us. I see Nicole just joined us. Madhuri, I noticed you joining us earlier. And Oxford, thank you for joining. Angeline, thank you for joining. And Siti Fatimah for joining us. It is a pleasure to be seeing all of you. And another, I would say, another thing that really caused me to be so excited meeting all of you today, that we have people from 4 countries in this discussion today. So welcome to all of you from Malaysia. And also I'd like to welcome to those of you to Elvish calling us from Beijing, Bill calling us from Ho Chi Minh City, and also Joe calling us from Sydney. So thank you very much for being here this evening. Now, I would like to continue with this discussion this evening using this metaphor. So moving into this metaphor, I wonder how many of you are aware of this metaphor that I am using, the Boeing 737 MAX. Now, Boeing 737 first went into service in 1967. It had low body for easy passenger access, because during those times, those of you who are my age, so we walked on the tarmac and we had to climb up the stairs in order to get into the aircraft. So when the Boeing 737 first came into service, they deliberately constructed it with low body so that you don't need to climb so high. Then fast forward maybe about 20 odd years, 20 or even 30 years, they discovered that putting in a bigger engine would improve fuel efficiency and increase performance of the aircraft. It's just that to fit a bigger engine, they cannot put it where the old engine was, because that will reduce the clearance. So what they did was they shifted the engine forward in order to maintain that minimum clearance. When the engine has been shifted forward, it created a we've got a mechanical engineer in the room today, Hashim there. It created a dynamic imbalance that caused the aircraft to nose up. So to prevent the aircraft going nose up and get into a stall, they automatically fitted and in the autopilot an auto dip function. So they had sensors to detect if the aircraft has suddenly gone nose up. They had an autopilot that pushed the nose down. So that was fitted into the flight control system. It's just that many pilots were not fully aware of that system. So that's why we had the issue of Lion Air Flight 610 and Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed, killing everyone on board. So the reason why I'm using that metaphor is that when you have something in your autopilot that you are not aware, you may not be operating in the right way when it kicks in, and then it can cause serious damage. For the majority of us, most of our autopilot instructions were made when we were children. And when we were children, our cognitive ability was still at a very low level. We were full of cognitive distortions when we make those instructions. And because of that, we have created autopilot instructions that were ill-formed and that were immature. And for many of us, we grow into adulthood using those programs, using those autopilot instructions. If those autopilot instructions are still relevant, then we can breathe a sigh of relief. What if our autopilot instructions are no more relevant? It was relevant for a 5-year-old, but not any more relevant for a 30-year-old or 40-year-old or 50-year-old. So this is where I would like to bring your attention to this autopilot, which we in neurosemantics we call them meta programs. Meta programs are our autopilot. So do you know why, what, how our meta programs are running? So these are this is something that I would like to bring to your attention for you to realize that we have habituated a certain way of operating, and because of that, they are now running, automatically running the way that we are running our brain, and this kick in every time that we are operating. So meta programs are your autopilot. So just giving a pause there, just checking with everyone here. If you are aware, if you have already been exposed to meta programs, you know what it is. Please put a 1 in the chat box. If you are not aware of meta programs, then please put a 0 inside the chat box. So either 1 or 0. If you are aware, just put in 1 in the chat box. Thank you, Joe. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so we've got we've got a couple of zeros and a 0.5 from Zoe. Yep, expected. Thank you. So I'll just cover a little bit about meta programs, just a quick introduction to meta programs before we continue on, so that I can give some context to those who put in 0 there. So let's take a look at these meta programs, what they are. Now, yeah, I'm just sharing the screen. At what we call the primary level referring to the level of me interacting with the world out there, events happening in the world, what I see, hear, feel in the world. This is what we call the primary level. Now, when we talk about meta programs, when we talk about meta programs are our default ways of thinking, feeling, choosing, meaning making, or conceptualizing. So those are the 3 meta programs at the meta level. We call them the meta level, which is beyond, above our primary level, above what we see, hear, feel, at one level where we are thinking. So that's our cognitive style. Then how we are feeling, that's our emoting style. And then how we are choosing things, that's the cognitive meta program. So this is at the meta level, 3 filters, and above that is another style which we call the conceptualizing or meaning making. So this is the meta level. So these are our ways of operating. Now, when I say ways of operating, meta programs are our default ways of thinking. And there are altogether 60 meta programs detected, 60 meta programs detected. It's just that when we come to the 60th meta program, that's the meta program of values. So there's a lot more inside the 60th meta program. However, there are 60 meta programs detected. Now, how meta programs work is that when we take information from the real world, from the outside world, our meta programs, they are in our filter. They are part of our perceptual filters, the filters that we perceive information. So the information goes through the meta program. So this is where the meta program of cognizing, how we understand things, our thinking, the meta program of feeling, emoting, the meta program of cognitive meta program, choosing. So it filters information there. So our meta programs are in fact the autopilot that chooses what types of information goes in and what types of information goes stays out. So that's what we are referring to as perceptual filters. Now, apart from 6 meta programs that I know, the rest of the meta programs, there are no right or wrong ways of operating. So you want to be aware of the context, how you use the meta program. So in any situation that we are at, even though there are 60 meta programs, typically there'll be about 6 or 7 meta programs that are what we call the driver meta programs. These drive our thinking, feeling, choosing, meaning making in each particular context. So these are what we call driver meta program. Now, a word of caution about these meta programs, as I mentioned to you, that there are no right or wrong ways about these meta programs. All of them work in certain ways. Any meta program that a person uses in a wrong context will work against that person or against being able to achieve some objective. So from the 60 meta programs, more than 50 of them, there are no right or wrong ways of operating them. The key thing is knowing how to operate these meta programs. Yeah. So when it comes to relationships in life, I've identified 6 meta programs that may play a major role in many people. Not everyone, because everyone is unique. They may have a different driver meta program. So what I'm going to do next is going to share with you 6 meta programs, how they work, and more importantly, for us to be aware of how they can trip us, how they can become unuseful for us to operate. Okay, so before I go into the 6 meta programs, I'm going to pause here just to give you an opportunity to ask questions or give comments for this moment, so that we can bring everybody to be in the same room right now. So go ahead. If you have any questions or comments that you like to make, just unmute your mic and just ask questions and make comments. Go ahead. Everyone good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So let's continue. Let's start off with the first meta program I have prepared for you is the meta program of self-esteem. In this meta program of self-esteem, you have at one end of the spectrum is the meta program of conditional self-esteem, and at the other end is the meta program of unconditional self-esteem. This meta program refers to the higher level belief frames you operate from with regard to your concepts about value and dignity of yourself. So that's why you call it self-esteem. What you believe about you as a human being. Now, the conditional self-esteem refers to viewing and feeling self-esteem as conditional, that your esteem is conditional on something. So you may have values to that based upon many number of things that determines maybe your culture, your belief system, your looks, money, strength, intelligence, degree, status, and so on. Yeah. So people who prefer and use this meta program are forever thinking, feeling, and concerned about how they are doing on the self-esteem scale. Their ego concerns are always on the line. They need to continue to prove themselves. So people who are running the meta program on conditional self-esteem, they have this need to continue to prove themselves. How many of you are familiar with one of the current tennis greats, Naomi Osaka? There is a Netflix documentary on her, about her right now. Now, she's, I would consider a powerful force in the world of women's tennis because she won the US Open at the age of 20. That's a very young age. So she's remarkable in that sense. And it's just that one of the things that I noticed that she mentioned in that documentary, she said that My esteem is based on winning games, winning the tennis games. So her esteem was conditional on her success. So she confuses esteem with confidence. And that creates that immense toll, mental and emotional toll on her. And that's probably the reason why she dropped out of the French Open and also Wimbledon this year. So when you are running it in that particular way, conditional esteem, it can put you under a lot of stress. The unconditional esteem, on the other hand, refers to viewing and feeling self-esteem as unconditionally given, and therefore full, complete, and unassailable. People who use this meta program have settled the question of self. They are at peace with themselves. I am somebody. I have value. I have worth. So when it comes to the self-esteem meta program, the unconditional self-esteem meta program is the healthy meta program, because the only condition that you want to put your esteem, the condition for your esteem is that you are a human being and everyone else are human beings. Therefore, we can esteem ourselves unconditionally. Yeah. There is another end to that, another side of that spectrum, when people over-esteem themselves. Over-esteeming is when they are esteeming themselves above and beyond other human beings. That can also be unhealthy. So the healthy esteem is unconditional. You have a right to esteem yourself purely on the basis that you are a human being, regardless whether you are good in this or not good in that, or you are good looking or not good looking, you are tall, short, or whatsoever. You have every right to esteem yourself fully and unconditionally. Yeah. Yes, Jekju, you put it there, short sendiri. Yes, that counts. That's what we, that is part of the issue that comes to. For the benefit of Bill and Joe, you may not be familiar with the term short sendiri. It refers to people who are legends in their own mind. Okay, so in Malaysia we have a term for it. We call it short sendiri. However, when we want to be polite, we'll just say SS. Okay, so that's one meta program. Okay, so I'll introduce to you another three, and then we'll take a pause in order if you want to ask question. The next meta program that I want to bring to your attention is the meta program of authority source. Where does your authority come from? On one end of the spectrum, we have the internal source. You are looking inside to look for your source of authority. And the other end of the spectrum is the external source. You look outside of you to get your source for authority. This meta program relates to your sense or locus, your circle, location of control. Where do you posit that locus? Do you posit the authority to decide, determine action, right or wrong, inside, so that's internal, or outside, that's external. Internal and or external reference meta program describes the view, perspective, and orientation of our outlook. So this meta program sorts for and pays attention to the views and opinions of others, to the authorities out there. Okay, so with respect to this meta program, there are no right or wrong. It is purely contextual. Internal refers to I'm referring to my concepts, and part of my concepts are my values and beliefs. So it is healthy for me to refer to my values and beliefs when I want to do something, because that behavior will be congruent with my values and beliefs. It is also healthy for me to refer to what's outside before I do something, because what's outside of me is telling me how the world is operating. So I need to check what's outside there. Yeah. If I don't check outside there, I just go into my concept, then I might become delusional. So I need to check with what's outside. However, if I am always looking at what's outside, I don't check with my values or belief, then I will be like one who has no backbone. I'll be moving around in this world, being, especially in this world of social media, I'll be trying to behave in ways according to what people say that I need to do. So the authority source is contextual. There are times that I need to go in, refer to my values and beliefs in order for me to make decisions, to take action. And as I work on the concepts that I have in my mind, I need to check with reality. How true are my concepts before I make any decisions or I take action? Otherwise, if I were to have this concept that I'm the president and I'm due to be elected for the second term, and I don't look at the outcome of the election, then I'm in deep trouble. Okay, so this meta program, internal and external, it is contextual, how we use it. Okay, the third meta program that I just want to introduce to you is the meta program of attention. On one end of the spectrum, attention to self, giving attention to self. The other end of the spectrum is attention to others. This meta program deals with a social relational context, how we relate in our social world, and focus primarily where your attention goes. Does your attention go to self, or does your attention go to others in the social relational context? Where do you invest your attention as you move through the world, taking in information, communicating, relating, taking action? Do you typically attend to yourself or to others? Do you focus your attention on what you think, feel, want, choose, and do? Or do you focus your attention primarily on what others think, feel, want, choose, and do? This emotional meta program relates to the investment of your attention and how you emotionally see the world of others. This attention meta program has no right or wrong either. It is also contextual. There are times that I need to give attention to myself because, taking the metaphor of the airplane, typically when they make the announcement before the plane takes off, they'll say that when the oxygen mask is released from the overhead compartment, pull the mask towards your face, cover your nose and mouth, and breathe normally. Yeah. And the next thing that they say is that if you are traveling with a child, put the mask on yourself first, and then attend to the child. Yeah. For most parents, the automatic reaction is to put the mask on the child. But guess what? While you are putting the mask on the child, you lack oxygen and you pass out, both of you die. Okay, so that's why in order for me to give attention to others, I also need to give attention to myself. So the healthy meta program is to be able to have that balance. There are times that I give attention to myself. There are times that I give attention to others. It's just that when you are running an imbalance, a person who has the meta program of giving attention to self, let's say an example is that this person, a parent having 2 or 3 little children, if the attention is to self, you can just imagine how difficult for that parent to take care of the child. How tiring it is, because they are running the meta program on self. Okay, and the other way can also work, because if I'm running the meta program purely on others, at every instant I want to take care of others, help others, to the extent that I may be overstretched, overexhausted, and will not be of any use to anyone. So again, this meta program, we need to be aware of the context. So I'm going to pause here. I've covered 3 meta programs. There are another 3 that I'll be bringing for our discussion. So with these 3 meta programs, I'm just want to invite your feedback, your questions, if you have any. Just go ahead.
Yeah, Mazuki.
Yes. Hashim, go ahead.
Yeah, there's an interesting metaphor you introduced, 737. Because last week we had 4 straight nights of training on these drones. Yeah, and then we have a group of about 39 of us. And we're talking with the pilots and those who are in the drone business. Because of the current or the latest regulation by the Civil Aviation Authority, that the laws says that you cannot fly the drone based on certain requirements. And there's a big impact on the industry, huge, big impact. And coming to the meta program, in our group, there are people who are, in terms of the operating from the authority source. So on one end, say, oh, we must abide by the authority. And some of them, oh, I've been operating this with no problem, all this one. so that is the meta program that this people has over the years.
Yeah.
Even though the laws has been in place, and that is the autopilot they are working on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hashim. Bill, you raise your hand. Go ahead.
Oh, I think Joe has a question first, so just let him take that. Yes.
Yeah, actually, I did. It was actually more of a comment than a question, but I was just thinking, like Jesus said, love one another as you love yourself. So striking a balance between others and self.
Wow, thank you very much. Yeah, we need to strike a balance there. And Zo, go ahead.
Okay. I think if you talk about the contextualization of this whole thing, it also depends on the balance of power between you and the person you are relating to. I think most of the time, if the other party is overwhelmingly more powerful, you tend to operate on the other side rather than to your own.
Yeah.
That's my view about the whole thing. Yeah.
So yes, thank you. So that is where the contexts come in, and there is also where that once you are aware that you are the creator of your meta program, by adjusting the way that you run your meta program will be less stressful. Yeah. So for example, I know that I run this meta program, attention meta program, attention to others. And whenever I've mentioned this before, when I attend the neurosemantics trainers training, for many of us, we invest the time, the money to be there. We would share rooms at the hotel in order to save cost. However, I know that my meta program is attention to others. I would deliberately decide on single room because I need the time to be by myself when I am not attending to others. If I have a roommate, I know that automatically I will be wanting to serve my roommate. There will be no time for me to refresh. So being aware of how your meta programs are helps you in making decisions that will be healthy all around.
Mazuki,
Yes.
now I understand why when we were in the same dorm, you always go and make up my bed. Yeah, remember? I wake up late and I was taking my bath and you go and set up my bed for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There was a time when there was nothing that I could do anymore. He went to have his shower and all that. I made up his bed, and the duty master came in to inspect, and he was still wearing his towel. Remember that one? So I was just standing there. No, I've helped him to the extent that I could, but I cannot dress him. Okay, thank you. Going to the question that Elvish puts in there, how to switch attention from others to self or vice versa. The thing about meta programs, in meta NLP, we have got one pattern, we call it extending meta program. Yeah, so there is a process that we can run to be able to help us to extend the meta program. What it is useful because it makes it easier for us to shift. So once we are able to operate at a wider spectrum, for example, going back to this example that I've given earlier, operating our meta program at my pencil doesn't work. Operating at the meta program purely at the either self or others at very narrow band makes us very rigid and inflexible, and because of that it makes us feel difficult to move. So the expanding meta program pattern is about making it comfortable for us to move between the two ends of the spectrum. Yeah. So in that way, noticing the context that's out there, to let the context inform us that, okay, I need to give attention to myself because I'm noticing my energy is going down. For example, in my case, I'm comfortable because once you habituate yourself and in any spectrum of that meta program, it becomes comfortable for you to operate in that way. So noticing that I run my meta program attention to others, I would also want to bear in mind that what is my energy level? Do I have enough energy to give attention to this person? When I notice that my energy level is low, an example that I can give is whenever my grandchildren comes to the house, and you know, children, they have abundant of energy, and I would prepare myself physically, mentally, emotionally. Okay, they are going to come to the house. I want to give them the best attention that I can give to them. And with children, they just want to play, right? So I'll be there, ready to play with them. And at the same time, I'm noticing my energy level. So as I play with them, 100% full tilt, I notice that the moment I notice that my energy level starts to drop down, before I get cranky, I'll say to them, grandfather needs to take a rest for a bit, okay? Grandfather needs to close grandfather's eyes just for a bit. Would that be okay? The smallest one would say, would follow me to my bedroom, and he'll play quietly beside, because he knows that grandfather needs to rest. So noticing that gives me the indicator when to shift meta program from others to self, because I cannot serve others when I am totally depleted. Yeah. So Oxford asked this question. I was thinking where these meta programs come from. For example, I could think in terms of personality or perhaps some kind of nurtured worldviews. Thank you, Oxford. From neurosemantics perspective, meta programs are solidified meta states. Yeah? What it means is this: when I look at something happen out there, and then I begin to think in a particular way. Yeah. For example, I see my friend Tajuddin there, and he cracks a joke, and I say that he's funny. And then next time I see him cracking another joke, he's funny, and he does that again and again. After some time, the moment I see him, my way of thinking is that he's a funny guy. Yeah, because I have been thinking in that way so many times. After sometimes, automatically I see that face, he's a funny guy. Yeah, so that's what we call solidified meta state. Initially, I put on the meaning that he's funny, and after so many times putting the meaning that he's funny, that meta state that is created, he's funny, becomes my default way of thinking. So that's how meta program come about. We call it a solidified meta state. Yeah? Nature or nurture, both happening at the same time. Because the question comes, do we come into this world with our meta programs in place? Yes, there are evidence about it. And at the same time, are we meta-stating ourselves into the meta programs that we are running with right now? Yes, there is evidence there as well. So there is some elements of nature, and there is also a huge body of evidence that it is also nurture. Yeah. So both comes in. So when you Oxford, when you mention a personality, what we are saying is that personality is a group of meta programs coming in together, and they contribute to a certain way of behaving for a person. So like what we are doing this evening, we are taking a group of meta programs. Afterwards, I'm going to fool around with those meta programs. And when they operate in a certain way, that gives rise to a person's personality. So from this perspective, whenever I look at people and other people say, this person has a very charismatic personality, we can still break it down into several meta programs to notice how they are operating. Yeah.
Thank you, Rᴜɪɪ.
Thank you, Oxford. And Yᴏᴜᴜ. So it is something like one person mentioned about, it is rumor, but 100% talk about it become fact. Oh, that one I cannot comment.
Because you mentioned, because when you see Tajuddin, it is funny. Then again, it is funny. So again and again kind of thing. I don't know how much, after numerous times, you say, okay, you will relate to, okay, Tajuddin is funny kind of things, you see. So that's why when someone talk about me, Yᴏᴜᴜ, you are useless. So I say, who cares, okay? But 100 people say I'm useless also, I would think that it's a fact that I'm useless already kind of things, you see. So this is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. When we go to when we think in a particular way, we go to a certain meaning, and when we feel that meaning, it causes us to go into a state. This is the mental and emotional state. And we are so used to thinking in that way, after some time, that way of thinking then becomes automatic because of the repetition. Yeah, repetition.
Just like the parents scolding the son, useless, 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 useless. So eventually useless.
Yᴏᴜᴜ, when you give the example, whenever I hear example of parents doing such things to children, I feel very emotionally, because a lot of children, we included, yeah, we go through the process whereby, and the thing about it is this: the parents are doing it not deliberately trying to harm us. So this is what we are referring to, the autopilot. Thank you. And what Ching put there, it is like advertising. When everyone said this is good, you start to believe. Yeah, to believe.
Actually,
KFC, finger licking.
good.
Who says?
I eat with fork and knife, never lick my fingers.
Okay, shall we move on to the next 3 meta programs I have ready for you? Next meta program is the meta program of interactive, how we interact with others. One end of the spectrum is the competitive meta program, win-lose meta program, and the other end of the spectrum is the meta program of cooperative, win-win. In interacting with people, things, informations, and events, we can do so in various ways according to the style and energy expended, either competitively or cooperatively, in a win-lose attitude or a win-win attitude. Some people, they prefer the lose-lose attitude. So that's also another way of operating. So with respect to how we interact with people, so how do you say things? Which meta program is the governing lens that colors this facet of life for you? Through the eyes of competition or cooperation? Now, with the interactive meta program, it is also contextual. There are times that you want to be competitive. Imagine the Olympic athletes not being competitive, then there will not be any gold medal or silver medal or bronze medal. Then probably we end up like the high jump. They've got a joint gold medal in the high jump. In sports, you set up a competitive environment that when you perform it a certain way, you can win that without harming the other party. So yes, that is the right context to be competitive. At the same time, if the person takes that competitive meta program into their relationship, the husband competing with the wife for the affection of the children, that becomes unhealthy. Yeah. So similarly, when it comes to cooperative meta program, there are times that you want to be cooperative, and the cooperative meta program doesn't work in the in athletics. So you want to find that balance. You want to notice. In this particular context, which meta program will be useful, which meta program will not be useful. So similarly, in this context as well, the interactive meta program, one is competitive, the other is cooperative. Next meta program is the meta program of adaptation. This refers to, on one end of the spectrum, which there is judging, and not just judging, controlling. Then the other end of the spectrum is perceiving, observing, releasing. This meta program refers to how we adapt ourselves as we move through the world. Do we use a style of navigating life by adapting ourselves? That is perceiving, or by working to make the world adapt to us? That's judging. The judger meta program views the world, and then so they make choices by that way, by seeking to exercise control or management of the world. This leads to the state of taking charge, acting, innovating, being a mover and shaker, change agent. And this is a very this is the very characteristic of the Western way of life, taking charge, taking control. The perceiver meta program views the world as whole and something to mostly observe, notice, and experience rather than manage and control. So this leads to the states of fitting in, finding the natural rhythms of the world, being passive, enjoy the observation, being a spectator, environmentalist. So this is, and this adaptation meta program is also contextual. I'm sure you can think of situations whereby you need to judge, you need to take control. For example, in the context of the disruption happening to businesses and economy right now, you need to take charge, take control of your finances. You cannot be just perceiving, oh look, I don't have any more business, but never mind, I just observe. It's not going to be helpful. Okay. Similarly, so you want to find the situations whereby you need to take control. If, as a parent, noticing your children's behavior, young children, you need to quickly take charge whenever they are behaving in ways that are that may be dangerous for them. So you need to take charge in those situations. And then there are situations that they may be in an argument with a friend. There is a conflict, and they are conflicting in ways that are not hurtful or harmful to one another. You just maybe want to just step back and just observe their conflict, because by doing that, you are letting them learn how to handle conflicts in their lives. So there are times that you want to just observe. There are times that you want to take charge and control. So understanding the context is key again. Then coming to the sixth meta program that I've prepared for you this evening is the meta program of responsibility, the ability to respond in ways that are resourceful for you and in that particular situation. One end of the scale of that meta program spectrum is under responsibility, and at the other end of the scale is over responsibility. So this is the meta program where there is a healthy way of operating, which is the healthy responsibility meta program. The healthy responsibility meta program is taking responsibility for your 4 foundational powers and knowing that you have responsibility towards others using your 2 external powers, and not to go beyond the power zone. Because the moment you go beyond the power zone, you are becoming over responsibility. The power zone here, I'm referring to the zone of power of thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. So a healthy responsibility is I take full responsibility for my thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. And also I know that in my relationship with you, I am responsible for what I say and do to you, because that's my responsibility for the relationship. Now, under responsibility is I lay blame on others about how I think, about how I feel, about what I say and what I do. I don't take responsibility for my powers. Over responsibility is when I want to take control of your powers. I want to take the responsibility for what you say and what you do. That's over responsibility. Yeah. So this is the meta program whereby the healthy responsibility is to appropriately balance the ownership of responses for self and to others. Under responsibility will lead to life of blame, entitlement, dependency, victimhood, irresponsibility. Yeah? Over responsibility is it leads to intrusion or over involvement in other people's lives. And this frequently results in an increase in stress in the people around us. Okay, so those are the 3 additional meta programs: interactive, adaptation, and responsibility. So let's take a breather here. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Bill. Bill mentioned that he needs to leave. And I noticed that my wife has joined. Yeah, Zo, go ahead. You raise your hand.
Okay. I just want to comment. It may sound like comical, but I'm quite serious about it. I'm just saying that the present state of our leaders, they are being underly over responsible. They blame the rakyat for the breakup of the COVID. They want to control all sorts of things, but they're not controlling. So I call that underly over responsible, or whatever, however you want to put it. But it's an extreme situation where blaming others at the same time trying to control when other people are trying to take charge. So if I put up a white flag, no, don't put up a white flag. But they don't do anything to help. So sorry, political statement. Sorry.
Thank you, Joe. I hope you got the gist of that, Joe. That's the I would say the feelings of people in Malaysia right now with the crop of politicians that we have here. Yeah. Anyone else has got any comments? No? Okay. So now let's have some fun playing around with these meta programs, because as I mentioned earlier, when you are not aware of how you are running your meta program, what happens is that you run that meta program in that particular way in almost every situation. That can get you into all sorts of trouble with the relationships in your life. So let's take a hypothetical situation. Yeah, an example over here. This is the first example. Bringing all the 6 meta programs that we talk about. Let's say we have this person running the meta program self-esteem as conditional. Remember, conditional self-esteem is an unhealthy meta program. So conditional self-esteem, authority source, internal. So when the authority source internal, this person can become delusional because they are just referring to their concepts. Yeah. And attention is to self. So now this person becomes very self-centered, delusional, and because they have conditional self-esteem, they feel that they need to have control over others. So when it comes to interactive meta program, they are running it competitive, win-lose. So it's about me, 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 me. I need to be the one getting the attention. I need to be the one who's winning in things. And in terms of adaptation, judging. So this is how this looks like. Just these 5 looks like meta programs that many bullies use are running in their lives. That's why they end up bullying others. So we do know of a particular politician who's running the meta program in this particular way, isn't it?
Yeah. 40, 50 years, he's still having this meta program, still doing it to the rakyat now.
Yes. And as you mentioning there, the meta program of under-responsible. Yeah, the COVID is spreading because the people are not physically distancing. But the politicians, it's okay for us because probably the COVID knows that they are politicians, it don't go near them, something like that. So notice how when a person is, the word that I'm using here is unconsciously running the meta programs in this way, what will that do to the quality of life of the people around them? Because a person who is running authority source internal, attention self, competitive, judging, under responsible, they are so focused on themselves, they don't know that they are hurting and harming the people around them. They don't know that. It's a blind side. Even when people come up with feedback about them, they cannot see it because it's like a coin. You flip a coin, and the coin falls on the floor. You see a head. You can't see the tail. So if somebody were to present information about the tail, they say, "What? There's nothing. I can't see that. It's not there." So these people are hurting and harming others without ill intent. For some of them, there are people who have ill intent towards others, but what I'm referring to are there are, my guess is many people who operates in this way without any ill intent. It's just that they are blind to their behaviors. Right? So let's take another example. So same thing. Now I push all the ways of operating the meta program onto the other side. Self-esteem still conditional self-esteem. It's just that authority source is now external. Oh, now I have to count the number of likes, the number of followers that I have on social media. So I form my opinion based upon what people say, what people about me, what people say around there. So now I don't have a compass. I'm just following what's outside there. Attention to others. So wanting to be around others and just depleting the source of energy in order to be around others, listening to others, and always win-win. So it's okay for me to die. I'm the martyr. That's okay for me to die this way. And just observing, perceiving, not taking action. So whatever is happening in their lives that may be hurting them. So the people who are running this meta program, the tendency is that they may be hurting themselves. And in terms of responsibility, to be over responsible. So even when somebody does something wrong, they say, I'm the one who's responsible for that. Okay. And can you think of people in your life, in your family, who's running the meta program in this way? Probably even at an early age, they're already hunched because they are carrying the load of the world on their backs without noticing it. So this is how, when we are not aware. One is we are not aware of our meta program. The other is when we are not aware that we are in control, in charge of our meta program. Then what happens is that the meta programs that we have created for ourselves from when we were little children, these are the meta programs that now run our lives. We are not running our lives. We have handed over that power to the meta programs, not knowing how that autopilot is operating from. Yeah. So the key here is balance. Understanding the right ways of running the meta program, understanding what are the contexts that I need to take into account, and taking into account those contexts, in what way should I be running the meta program? Then I bring myself back to be in charge of my life. Otherwise, I'm running my life according to the influences or programming that others, society, has put upon me, and because of that, I'm suffering in this world, thinking that this is my lot. I cannot change my life anymore. Having that balance gives us flexibility, and this is at the core of NLP and neurosemantics, because we live in a world whereby we are faced with multitudes of situations, and we need to have the ability to respond to those situations resourcefully, and that requires us to be flexible enough to choose our responses, because one response may be suitable for one context, another response is suitable for another context. As one of the examples that I've given to you earlier, the response of judging or perceiving. So perceiving, that response, just to observe, is suitable when I notice that two children, they are having a conflict with one another, and they are not hurting and harming with one another, they are arguing. It's just to observe, noticing that for as long as they are not hurting or harming one another, they are learning how to resolve conflicts. And at the same time, when I notice that a child starts to do something that can be dangerous, to move into that meta program of taking control, taking charge, to prevent the child from going from harming him or herself. So that's what it refers to as the flexibility over here. So the key to most of our autopilot is the context. So this requires us to have that thinking skill to analyze the context in a healthy way. And once we allow the context to give us information as to which meta program to run. So that's when we come to the point whereby we are operating from a healthy autopilot. Our autopilot is healthy. So in this context, the healthy meta programs would be, for self-esteem, unconditional. For authority source, having that balance. The balance here is having an internal reference with external check. Internal reference refers to your values and beliefs. So now I lead my life according to my moral, ethical compass. I have a compass. So that gives me stability, and I have external check to prevent myself from becoming delusional, because my thinking may be wrong. It can go wrong. And in my personal case, there are numerous times it has gone wrong. So I need to be able to have a healthy perspective that, yes, I have my concepts. I refer to my concepts. At the same time, I need to check with the reality, with the territory out there. So the healthy meta program for authority source is internal reference with external check. For attention is to have that balance between self and others. In the context of social relations, the meta program of others is healthy. At the same time, I do not want it to be at the expense of self, because it is from the energy of self that I am serving others. So to be able to have that balance. In the meta program of interactive, to also have the balance of cooperative win-win, because we human beings, we rely on others for our wins. So this is, as Stephen Covey puts it, the third alternative, how to get win-win at a higher level, to be not just cooperating, collaborating with others. At the same time, knowing that there are situations that, yes, it's healthy for us to operate in competitive ways. Since we've just covered the Olympics, that's the first example that I can think of, to be operating the meta program of interactive in competitive ways. And when it comes to responsibility, to bring into the meta program of healthy responsibility, meaning to say, I take charge of my 4 powers. I am responsible for my 4 powers. The powers of thinking, the power of feeling, the power of saying, and the power of doing. These are my powers. And as I use these powers, I'm also responsible to you for what I say and do, because that helps with the relationship that I have with you. You have power over your thinking, feeling, saying, doing. So what you think, what you feel, what you say, and what you do, that's not my business. That's your business. That's your power. So I do not want to encroach into that boundary. So these are the healthy ways of running our autopilot. Okay. So let's pause there before we end the session in a short while. Just to give you some time to think of any questions or comments that you would like to make. I've got a question here, comment from Chick Siu. No wonder. What was that you're referring to, Chick Siu?
I mean, just now when you mentioned they are too like self-centered, all this kind of thing, like our minister lah, no wonder lah, or from China, no wonder lah. And that one.
Okay, thanks.
So those the thing. I mean, when they say you are too self, I mean, we always judge people like, okay, you're from China, or no wonder lah, kind of things lah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also, Dr. Marzuki, I saw your diagram just now, the unconditional, the balance and the balance, but now the balance is not in between, you see. One is more slanting to the one side, the other one is slanting to on another side, but it's still you call the balance. What does it mean? Is that something like the balance, this one, the weightage is more prone to the left, that balance is more prone to the right, kind of things, you see. Like that.
Thank you for noticing that. I deliberately put it that way because each and every one of us are individuals and we operate differently. Yeah. So there is no such thing as being right in the middle to be for it to be healthy. So you want to know how you operate. Yeah. For example, I give the example of Naomi Osaka. And I noticed on the TV, she is a very quiet person. So she is also not not comfortable being around others, because as she was growing up in the company of her father and her sister. She was not interacting with others. So for a person like Naomi Osaka, when we come to, let's say, taking the meta program of attention, for her to move more into the others, that will require a lot more energy for her. So probably it will not be so much over there, but she may be at another end. However, for as long as there is a range of operation, that's more than good enough. So we human beings cannot be operating right smack in the middle because we are different, individually different. Yeah.
So does it mean that can I use an example? For example, how to balancing when you stand on one foot? So how I stand on one foot and the way you stand on one foot are the two different way kind of things, you see. So
Yeah.
can I say that?
Yes, I
Okay.
like that. I like that example. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
for example, in my case now, whenever I go into the toilet as well, and I want to wash my feet, before I raise the foot, I hold on the handrail. Previously, younger, I don't need to hold the handrail. I can just put up one foot out.
Correct.
But now I
correct,
deliberately hold the handrail.
correct.
Because I know my limitation.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Thank
I
you.
feel that because last time I can tie my shoelace on one foot, but now I cannot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Those were the days.
So thank you for raising that point. So how we run that meta program will be individual. So that's why when it comes to coaching, as a coach, we don't bring in a fixed benchmark on how people operate. Every individual will operate in different way.
This is the best formula. After 20 years of empirical study, you see, trust me, I eat salt more than you eat rice. The bridge I cross more than the road you walk kind of thing, or listen to me kind of thing. This is always the Chinese say lah. Of course, this saying has been so-called, counterback by the youngster. They said, that's why I strongly believe that you eat salt more than I eat rice. That's why you are in the dialysis center.
Yeah, in Malay saying also we have that I eat more salt than you. For the benefit of Joe, that saying I eat more salt than you refers to I have more experience, therefore I'm wiser, so you have to listen to me. So it's just that nowadays you say, well, that's why you have high blood pressure, you take more salt.
Kidney failure.
Kidney failure. Okay, just going to the question that Oxford puts in here. Mazuki, to achieve balance and contextual appropriateness, I suppose it requires high sense of self-awareness. Yes, self-awareness, and also specifically referring to our self-reflexivity. Self-awareness refers to how are we aware about our states, mental and emotional state, and going from beyond mental and emotional state, knowing that our meta states are created by our self-reflexivity, referring to we are thinking, feeling about our thinking, feeling. Yeah. So as I'm looking at the screen in front of me, I'm thinking, I have a thought about the screen, and then I begin to have a thought about my thought about the screen, and then I have a thought about my thought about my thought about the screen. So that is our self-reflexivity, our ability to think, feel about our thinking, feeling. So just bringing in a little bit further to what Oxford mentioned there, self-awareness, it also encompasses our awareness of our self-reflexivity, how we are thinking about our thinking, feeling about our feeling, and the meta states that we are going up there. Yeah. So thank you very much for that point, Oxford. Yeah. So from Sue here, and even with that, the balance may change for the same person depending on the different circumstances and different phase in life. Thank you for pointing out that different phase in life, because as we go through the phases in life, we begin to change, have experience changes in our beliefs, in our values, even in our identity. So all of these have a bearing on how we run our meta programs. Yeah. So also to being aware about that, because to a large extent, our values are also driving how we run our meta programs. Yeah. For example, if a person has a value of that we human beings, we need each other in order for us to survive in this world. Because if we don't take care of each other, the world will collapse in the context of we have the environmental challenges we are facing right now. So if I have that kind of value, notice how it will run my interactive meta program. So with that value, it will cause me to run my interactive meta program from the spectrum of cooperative, win-win, collaborative. Yeah. So however, a person who has a value of Machiavellian value, the end justifies the means, may run the meta program competitive win-lose and also attention self. So our values are also impacting our meta programs. So one meta program is interacting with each other. So we human beings are a systemic organism. So one affects the other in that particular way. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for giving us that aspect.
And Dr. Marzuki, I have another question regarding the balance, because sometimes I see on the left to the right kind of things. Is it something like, I mean, I can say normally when we study the management theory, the Pareto principle 80-20 thingy. So as what they say, the 20% of the first class seat actually generate the 80% of the flight income kind of thing. And then the 80% of the economics only contribute the 20. That is how they strike the balance kind of. Is it something like that? Suddenly this one come to my mind. That's why I just want to,
yeah. I would say there is similarity. It's just that this is my personal observation. It's just that human beings don't conform too well with the statistical analysis. So so yes, we can take that as as a form of guide or information. It's just that when we are dealing with human beings, go beyond the statistics. I hope that makes sense, Jack-Yu.
Yeah, actually, if let's say you talk about strictly statistic, right? I should be die already kind of thing, because my father passed away at the age of 48 and my mother passed away at the age of 47. So average should be 47 and a half. I should die already, but now I'm 48 plus, going to 49. So statistically, it's not really make sense.
Yeah. So good. You are beating the statistics. Thank you very much. Okay, so you put up your hand. Go ahead.
Okay. I mentioned something about, I say cooperative. This was the word by De Bono. He was saying that you do not need to have competition all the time. You do not need to be cooperative all the time. Cooperation all the time. So he comes up with this thing called co-opetition. So if you remember, I did a course for the potential CEOs. I think you were there. Okay. So I mentioned to them an example. The IT mall in PJ, where so many of the shops selling IT related, computer, handphones, whatever, you just say, if you want to buy any laptop, you just go there. You want to buy any handphone, you go there, because you know that you get very good name. But at the same time, they compete among themselves, yet they cooperate, because they come together in one location. And because they do that, as far as we're concerned, if you stay in PJ side, you'll go to section 14. You stay somewhere KL side, you go to Loyat. It's like a given to you because of this co-opetition concept. But mind you, they still compete with each other. When you go to the shop, they'll compete with each other, but they don't kill each other in that sense. That's what I respect them, because they compete either being very good service, very informative, or they give better price. But they don't badmouth each other. I haven't heard anybody badmouthing another shop. So I really remember that I say, oh, this is a good example of co-opetition.
Yeah, yeah.
All of them became better because of that.
Very good point. My experience with Sungai Wang Plaza, I went to one shop to buy a pair of shoes. I asked them, do you have this in my size? Immediately, yes. He said, so I said, my size is, I'm wearing size 6. Yes, we have that. Can you wait for a moment? He goes to the shop downstairs, take that size and bring it and sell it to me. Yeah, so that's a co-opetition. Yeah, so you are competing for your own health, for your own profit. At the same time, not at the expense of others. Good. Thank you, Zo. Okay. We're already at 9:30, so coming towards the end of the session. Just to wrap up with a few points over here. When you are unaware of your autopilot settings, you may be unconsciously ruining your life and relationships. Running your meta programs in the wrong context can do that. So being aware of your meta programs and having the skills of expanding meta program gives you more control in life. You are in control of your life, not your meta programs. When you are running your meta programs and context change, then you can reevaluate how you are operating your meta programs. And you can do that regularly. And in the current situation we are in, the context is ever changing so frequently. People are using the word VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, and all of those. So this is the time for us that we need to be re-evaluating our meta programs so that our autopilot is running in a way that is helping us to thrive in our life and relationships. Yeah. So that's probably what I will just end off with final words before we end. So before we end, just to invite each and every one of you to just give your comments or whatever that you would like to say before we end. I would like to start with the bottom of my screen. Sue, are you able to access your microphone and say a few things before we end?
Yeah, just a quick one. It's very useful. And I like just now Tajudin's thing about the current environment here. I echo.
Thank you, Sue. Moving over to Ibu Rosita. Are you able to access your mic? G? No.
Mazuki, isn't she next to you?
No.
Not next to you. I thought she's just sitting at the couch next to you. No.
She's upstairs. And Oxford put in, thank you so much, Mazuki, for sharing your knowledge and insights. Please take care and stay safe. Do you have access to your mic? If you like to say something additional, Oxford, go ahead.
Probably just to reiterate, thank you so much, Mazuki, and thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. I've learned something. Thank you, I appreciate that. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Oxford. I appreciate your being here. And Madhuri, go ahead. Do you have access to your mic? No? Okay. Guat Ching, are you ready?
Okay. Thank you, Mazuki. I like tonight's session. It gives us a real example that easy to understand. And also the keywords that I learned tonight is we need to have a high awareness and also flexible to adjust our meta program and finding the running the right meta program in the right context. Yeah.
Thank you for the wonderful summary, Guat Ching. And over to you, Elvish. Go ahead.
Well, again, be more aware about own meta program. Be more aware and also pay the attention to others, how people, when they auto-run or autopilot their own meta programs. I think being be more understanding when people they have the emotion arise, or no, not really why behave that way. It's by really having understanding. I think this is also a way that's how we interact more effective with others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elvish. And Chip Chiu?
Yeah, again, when I saw the title of tonight's session is something like, okay, it's totally different from what I get in the past 1.5 hours. Oh, relationship, you know. So again, like last time, the dance thingy, I say, it's a dance. How the dancing class kind of thing. But they also is a talk. I think maybe talk about the relationship. Maybe it's like husband and wife, couples, or parents to children kind of thing. But those kinds of relationships. So totally is the perception I have before I come and at the end of the session is totally different. So that's why for the whole session, to me, is like it make me I need to control my autopilot with more awareness kind of thing, and don't let it always like all our apps are in our handphone run at the background and eat a lot of data unnecessarily kind of things. You see, I need to off all the background running apps kind of things, so that the battery of the phone can last longer, my data can use in the more useful way kind of things. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's another useful metaphor that you have used there. Thank you for that. And over to you, Hashim.
Yeah, the 6 meta program that you brought up today was, in fact, very insightful, because it happened to me last 2 weeks. We had a project coming in, and the guy was very, very assertive, and apparently, from my analysis, from what you were saying today, his self-esteem is on I win. If I lose, then my self-esteem drops. So he had that, when he had that conversation with the project owner, he goes on that line of language. So much so that the project owner said, "Come, let's discuss with the CEO." And 3 days after that, we had a meeting with the CEO. Within 3 minutes, the guy was off. He said, "I don't want this guy because he is so pushy." 3 minutes gone. But the CEO liked the guys very much. This is very assertive, but the context that he is talking about, he is not aware of the context when he is talking about we are in the same ship now. We are no longer in 2 different ships. We are in the same ship, but the language that he uses is still that I win, I must win, I must win, I must win. There it goes. That 6 meta program is meaningful for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the example. Wow, thank you. And Joe, over to you.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Yeah, I'll have to come to more of these sessions now. I know you're here.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate those. Yeah, I'll let you know when we have our next sessions, and you can join the ones that interest you. Right. And over to you, Zoe.
Okay. Good that you do 6 of them. Enough chunk, not too little, not too much, and it opens up quite a lot of things. Some of it I'm already aware. Some of it is quite a stretch for me in a way. Yeah. So I want to thank you. Hopefully I can join more. The next one. I have joined only 1 or 2 in the past. I've not really joined that much because you know, time priority now at this age is like after retiring, I find that I do a lot more things than when I was still actively working. seriously, I'm sure Marzuki knows this.
Yeah.
Upon retiring, we suddenly find that we are overly busy. So I want to thank you. Hopefully I can join the next one.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Joe. So with that, I would like again to thank all of you for being here with me this evening. I really appreciate your presence. I really appreciate your contribution, your comments, your questions during this evening. So I hope to be able to see any of you or all of you in the next sessions. When I have the next session, I will inform you through the Eventbrite posting. So with that, I wish you all the best. God bless. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marzuki. Thank you.
Assalamu-
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay
Okay,
safe.
stay
Thank you very
safe.
much. Tomorrow I go for my jab.